Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to section 8.7, Solving Quadratic Equations, Part 2. But before we actually get into solving quadratic equations, I want to take a little refresher course on factoring. Again, the very first thing I want you to do is to follow your steps. Our first step now is to factor out any like number, to take out any like number that would be sitting in here. Well, I look at all my numbers, I see that they are all even, so that means I get to take out a 2. So I'm going to set that 2 on the side, and now I'm going to take out a 2 out of all those numbers. I'm dividing out that 2. So 4x squared divided by 2 is 2x squared, then plus 11x plus 5. Now, we're going to factor what's inside those parentheses. So before I do that, I am always going to bring this 2 down, and then I'm going to make my set of parentheses and bring that 2x, put my 2x in one and the 2x in the other. Now I'm going to take this 2 times 5 to get 10. Now I need factors of a positive 10 that add up to 11. Well, it's our very first factors that we ever learned. 1 times 10 is 10. That adds up to 11, so I'm going to put plus 1 and plus 10 in those parentheses. But now, before we finish, what did we put in each parenthesis to start? We put a 2 to start, so I have to take a 2 out. I have an extra 2 in there. Well, I can't take out a 2 out of this 1, but I can take it out of this 2 and this 10. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to divide out that 2, and so now I'm going to be left with x plus 5, and then bring down everything else that you did not use. This 2 comes right on down, and then this parenthesis comes right on down, or that set of parentheses. And so now our solution would be 2 times the quantity 2x plus 1 times the quantity x plus 5. So that would be the factors of this. Now for today's stuff, we're actually going to solve. We're going to come up with an answer for x. We're not going to have factors anymore. We're going to come up with an answer for x. Now, to start, we have to check this. Does it equal 0? So we look at number 1. Does this equal 0? If the answer is yes, then we can continue. Now we use our steps from yesterday. Very first thing we want to do, can we take a common number out of all these numbers? We look at them, 5, 13, 6. No, we cannot take out a common number. So now we just jump right into yesterday's stuff. Right here we go, 5 times 6. 5 times 6 is 30. So I need factors of 30 that add up to 13. Well, those are 3 and 10. They both add up to 13. So then go ahead, make your parentheses, put 5x into both parentheses, 5x, and then put the 3 and the 10 inside each, and they still equal 0. All right, please remember they still equal 0. Now since I put a 5 in both parentheses, I have to take a total of 5 out. Well, can I take a 5 out here total? No. Well, can I take it out here? Yes, 5 goes into 5 and 10. So I'm going to divide out a 5 out of this guy to come up with x plus 2. And then my other guy stays the same. So it's going to be 5x plus 3. And that equals 0. All right, now for everybody's fun part, but we have to make sure, guys, we have to make sure that we set this equal to 0. So it's 5x plus 3 equals 0. All right, we set the whole thing equal to 0, and x plus 2 equals 0. And now we solve for x. This is how we get x all by itself. So since it equals 0, we are solving. We subtract the 2 over to the other side. So here, x equals a negative 2. And then for the red guy, I have to first subtract the 3 over to get 5x equals a negative 3. And then divide by 5. So x equals a negative 3/5. So here we have two answers. Here we have x equals negative 3/5 and x equals negative 2. All right, let's take a peek at number 2. Well, here the very first thing we have to check, does it equal 0? No, this does not equal 0. So what do you think we have to do? We have to move the 1 to the other side. So let's go ahead and do that. We move it through subtraction. So now I subtract 1 on that side, now it equals 0. Since it equals 0, now I can check, can I take out any number in my 3 terms? I cannot. So what's my next step? I'm going to take 2 times -1 to get -2. Now I need factors of -2 that add up to a -1. Well, since it's a negative, I know that the negative has to be bigger. So it's -2, +1, that adds up to a -1. So I'm good. So let's go ahead and make our parentheses. We have 2n goes into both parentheses. And then I'm going to put a -2 into one. I'm going to put +1 into the other. And it still equals 0. Right? Please remember that we put in 2 2's. So I need to take out a total of 2. Well, can I take out a total of 2 here? You're absolutely right. I sure can. So I have n minus 1 here. And then from the red guy that I did not touch, I still have 2n plus 1. That equals 0. Now, guys, again, we have to make sure that we set both of them equal to 0. We cannot just change the signs anymore. So I'm going to set this red guy equal to 0. So it's going to be 2n plus 1 equals 0. And then the blue guy, which is n minus 1 equals 0. We solve here, n equals 1. Yes, you can get away with changing the sign here, but I don't want you to do that. I want you to set it equal to 0 and solve, because why? We look at the red guy, we have to subtract the 1 over, so now it's 2n equals a -1. How do we get this 2 away from n? We divide, so now n equals a -1/2. So again, our answers, we have 2 answers, n equals -1/2, and here n equals 1. Let's try one more example. Here with number 3, the first thing we check for, does this equal 0? It does not equal 0. So what do we have to do? We have to move it to the other side. How do we move it to the other side? We add it. So it's 4x squared plus 32, then plus 24x equals 0. Now, is this how you are used to seeing it? It is not. Remember, it goes x squared, then x. It goes in order of descending powers. So now it's 4x squared. As I rearrange them, it's 4x squared plus 24x plus 32 equals 0. Now, what's my next step? Can I factor out any common number from these? Well, I know that 4 goes into 24 and 32, so let's take out that 4 and make our problem just a little bit easier for us. As I rewrite it, 4 times the quantity. I divided 4x squared divided by 4, so it's just a lonely x squared plus 6x and then plus 8, and that all equals 0. Well, now there is no longer a term in front of this x squared, so I can just go ahead and factor this like I normally would. So I'm going to bring down that 4 first so I don't forget about it. 4, and then I'm going to make some parentheses and put an x inside of them, an x inside that one. That equals 0. Well, what are factors of 8 that add up to 6? Well, my favorite factors of 8 are 2 and 4. That adds up to 6, so we found them. So it's plus 2 and plus 4. Now, when we have this 4 outside of our parentheses, it does not affect our solutions. We do not care now about that 4. We are just looking for our answer. So I'm going to set x plus 2 equals 0, and then I'm going to set x plus 4 equals 0. Solve for both. So here x equals a -4, and then here x equals a -2. So again, we have 2 answers. X equals -2 and x equals 4. All right, now we're not quite done. We have the vertical motion model, which is a model for the height of a projectile. So if something shoots up in the air, this is a model that would represent that going up in the air and coming back down. Both t's, right here a t and there's a t, both t's represent time, and time is in seconds. The v represents the initial velocity. H, and it is this h, represents ending height, but h sub 0 represents the starting height, and both heights are measured in feet. So let's take a peek at what some of these problems look like. Now I know it looks like a lot, but just read it twice and see if that helps you out at all. So here we go. Mr. Owl's science class built a model rocket and launched a rocket outside. It cleared the top of a 60-foot pole and then landed in a nearby tree. If the launch pad was 2 feet above the ground, the initial velocity of the rocket was 64 feet per second and the rocket landed 30 feet above the ground. How long was the rocket in flight? So let's go ahead and use our equation that we're given right here. We're going to use this guy. Let's find all the missing pieces to it. So t time, what is my time? Do I know my time? No, I do not know my time because how long was the rocket in flight? We are actually looking for time. All right, well, that's fair. How about initial velocity? What was it at takeoff? Well, I know that it says that the initial velocity of the rocket was 64 feet per second. So v is now 64. What else do I need? What was the starting height? What was the starting height? Well, the launch pad was 2 feet above the ground. So is it fair to say that h sub 0 should be 2? And then how about my ending height? My h, where did it land? It landed in a tree and it was 30 feet above the ground. So h equals 30. So now let's plug all of this stuff in to our equation. So height now was 30, and that equals negative 16t squared from our equation, and then it's going to be plus, and then our velocity was 64t, and then plus our height of 2. Now again, we put everything in, so now it just turns into a problem that we did this whole video. First thing I have to do, get this equal to 0. So I'm going to subtract the 30 over to the other side to get negative 16t squared plus 64t minus now 28, and I'm just moving my equal 0 to the other side. Now what do we do with this? What can we factor out of this? Well, I notice all my numbers are divisible by 4, and I do not like this negative leading it off, so I'm going to take out that negative along with it. So I take out negative 4, and so I'm left with a 4t squared, a minus now because I'm taking out a negative 4, a minus 16t, and now a plus 7. That all equals 0. Now let's try and factor this. I take 4 times 7 to get 28, and now I want something that factors into 28 that adds up to negative 16. So I know that a negative 2 and a negative 14 will add up to a negative 16. So I found my factors. So I bring down my negative 4, and then my parentheses go for t minus 2, and then for t minus 14, and that all equals 0. But what do I have to take out? I have to take out a total of 4, so I'm going to take out a total of 2 here and 2 here because 2 times 2 is 4, so I'm taking out a total of 4. So I'm left with negative 4 times 2t minus 1 and 2t minus 7, that equals 0. Again, this 4 does not matter when we solve, so start to solve. 2t minus 1 equals 0, and 2t minus 7 equals 0. Here I add over the 1, divide by 2, so t here equals 0.5 or half a second. And then here I add over the 7, so it's 2t equals 7, divide by 2, t equals 3.5. Now here I have two answers. What do these two answers mean? 0.5 now takes how long it gets to the top, but 3.5 means how long it takes all the way back down until where you landed. So 0.5 isn't what I want, it is 3.5 because we are looking for how long the rocket was in flight. How long the rocket was in flight, and that was for 3.5 seconds. And that does it for section 8.7, Solving Quadratic Equations, Part 2. Good day.